Imagine, you're living 200 years ago in the past. You're standing where Newport on the Levee is right now, and you're looking out across the river. And you know you have to get across the Ohio River in order to be free. This is an experience that thousands of slaves had. Today, I'm going to persuade you to learn more about this part of our history by visiting the Underground Railroad Freedom Center. I will tell you about the history that inspired the center. I'm going to tell you about its mission and tell you some important visitor information. I have learned about the Underground Railroad Freedom Center by research that I've done. I've also visited it several times, and I once produced a video that was used in a display there. We'll begin by looking at the Underground Railroad and its connection to the Cincinnati riverfront. The Underground Railroad was a path to freedom for slaves prior to the Civil War. It was not an actual railroad. According to the Public Broadcasting System Africans in American webpage, the Underground Railroad, a vast network of people who helped fugitive slaves escape to the north into Canada, was not run by a single organization or person. Rather, it consisted of many individuals, many white but predominantly black, who knew only of the local efforts to aid fugitives and not the overall operation. Still, it effectively moved hundreds of slaves northward each year. They borrowed terminology from the railroad, explains the National Geographic Education website. For example, the people who guided the slaves were called conductors, the slaves themselves were referred to passengers, and the locations where they went to hide were known as stations. It was very difficult for slaves to reach their freedom using the Underground Railroad. To quote the Underground Railroad Freedom Center website, many enslaved individuals were not lucky enough to make it to freedom. Current estimates place the number of enslaved individuals who successfully escaped at 100,000, but there are countless more who made the attempt but did not succeed. Being discovered by slave catchers, facing illness, and abandoning the attempt were all too common reasons for not making it to freedom. Enslaved individuals caught by slave catchers were often harshly punished upon their return by beatings, imprisonment, or punishments even harsher still. And even when they reached a northern state, they were still in danger. And the reason for this was, even in places where slavery was not legal, it was still legal for slave catchers to pursue the slaves. There were many routes that were used in the Underground Railroad, as you can see from this map from National Geographic, and the borders between slave states and free states were key. And of course, Kentucky was a slave state, Ohio was a free state. So Cincinnati played an important role. This according to John Johnston in the Cincinnati Enquirer article entitled, "Ohio is Free, Not Safe." To quote Johnston, because of its location just a river's width away from slaveholding Kentucky, Ohio evolved into a major route on the Underground Railroad. Cincinnati, for example, had a relatively large black community which gave escapees a good chance of slipping in unnoticed. Members of black churches and white abolitionists could then assist them. Well, now that you know more about the Underground Railroad, I'll discuss the Underground Railroad Freedom Center's mission. The Underground Railroad Freedom Center does more than tell the story of the Underground Railroad. It also addresses slavery in today's world. This is what their mission statement says. We reveal stories about freedom's heroes, from the era of the Underground Railroad to contemporary times, challenging and inspiring everyone to take courageous steps for freedom today. So certainly educating about the past is a vital part of this, and this includes telling the story of key figures according to Jet Magazine in their article, Historic Heroine Stories Are Told at National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. This includes Harriet Tubman, and she was actually someone who was born into slavery, but later became a very important leader of the Underground Railroad. And another important figure is Sojourner Truth. She also was born into slavery and later became the first black female orator to speak publicly against slavery. There are many important artifacts that you'll see at the Freedom Center, this according to the Freedom Center website, and this includes chains that were actually used to chain up slaves. There are many educational kiosks where you can learn about events, people, and more. There's a lot of very impressive artwork at the Freedom Center. This includes some amazing quilts. And also, the Freedom Center has one of just a few American slave pens that still exist. This according to Robert Siegel on National Public Radio. This slave pen actually came from Mason County, Kentucky. It was donated by a farmer named Ray Evers. And so it was on the land when Ray Evers bought it, and he heard about the Freedom Center being built. So he contacted them and offered to donate it. And then what happened is it was carefully disassembled, transported to Cincinnati, and then reassembled inside the Freedom Center. A pen like this would hold up to 50 slaves, and visitors can even go inside of this pen. And as you can see from this picture, it was even once toured by First Lady Michelle Obama. The center supports the continuing struggle for freedom, and this includes the issue of modern-day slavery. Currently, there are over 12 million slaves worldwide. This according to Peter Galuska in the article, A New Eye on History from Diverse Issues in Higher Education. To quote Galuska, modern-day slavery can involve such events as young girls being kidnapped and forced into prostitution in India and Thailand, known for its sex tourism. Other forms involve forced labor. And it happens all over, including the United States, and this even includes Cincinnati. The exhibit about modern slavery at the Freedom Center is entitled Invisible: Slavery Today. And the Freedom Center even offers people the opportunity to get involved. You can get information at the center, and there's also information online, and this includes ways to volunteer as well as how to avoid shopping at places that sell products that are made with slave labor. Well, now that you've seen the importance of the Freedom Center's mission, I will tell you how to plan your visit. I encourage you to visit the Underground Railroad Freedom Center, and according to the Cincinnati USA website, it is on the Cincinnati riverfront. It is just west of Great American Ballpark. If you're using a GPS, put in 50 East Freedom Way and the zip code 45202. And according to the Freedom Center website, they have parking both above ground and below ground. As you might guess, the parking's quite a bit busier on days where there's a Reds game or a Bengals game. And they do offer shuttle services to downtown as well as Covington and Newport, and that can help you save some money on parking. The hours of the center are Tuesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. It is closed on Sundays and Mondays. The ticket prices are $12 for adults, $10 for people aged 60 and over, and $8 for kids aged 3 to 12. Kids under 3 get in free, and you can simply buy tickets there at the door when you arrive. I would encourage you to go to their website for up-to-date information, and that website is freedomcenter.org. That's freedomcenter.org, and I would encourage you to wear comfortable shoes when you go. So let's review. I have told you why you should visit the Underground Railroad Freedom Center. I've explained its history and the history that inspired the center, the mission that the center has, as well as some important visitor information. Also, I have emailed a link to the center's website to everyone in the class to help you plan your visit.